welcome everyone to a late night edition of KC Chase to the Pennant. I'm Christian Martinez. Here with me, as always, is Kev. How you doing, Kev?
Doing well, Christian. It's kind of a fun time to be in Kansas City right now with the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl, a parade tomorrow, a new stadium announced, Bobby Witt extension. Got to be happy if you're from Kansas City right now. Bottom line.
Yeah, such a wild time. I mean, the fact that we're Super Bowl champs again, back to back, first time since the was it 03-04 Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. And then for the Royals to drop such big news in between, recovering from the Super Bowl to the parade. I think these forward past like this past week and a half is
Yeah.
probably one of the wildest weeks in the history of Kansas City sports. And the fact that, everyone's kind of pitching in, I think is really awesome. But I'm so happy to see the Chiefs win. I needed that so bad. And I'm sorry because I know there's a part of you that probably was like, I wish San Fran might have won, but being
I
here in
mean, yeah.
KC.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as big an NFL guy as I am for baseball. All my family is still kind of a Niners fan. I tend to lean more Niners than Chiefs, but I'm happy for the city. I'm happy for the team. Patrick Mahomes is the GOAT, and when I talk
Yeah.
to my friends who are Niners fans, they were saying that they're like, we got to play a really good game to beat the GOAT, and we didn't, and the Niners didn't. They played they kind of were. The defense stepped up, but the offense, the Shanahan's play calling, I could go all day. I don't want to go down that road. So let's
No,
just talk Royals baseball and
yeah,
enjoy the
let's not go
Chiefs
down that
win.
road. We just know
Yeah,
all I know is that Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the
he is.
NFL,
He
and
is.
that's that. Anywho, let's break down probably the biggest piece of news. Obviously, first of all, today is the first day that pitchers and catchers report in the MLB. So a big day for baseball as immediately right after the Super Bowl, we're starting to see the world trend towards baseball now. With football being over, we're midway through the NBA season, but now we're starting to see the MLB and baseball kind of rev up here. And that's exciting, especially for the Royals, because there's a lot that's going to happen with spring training. You got a lot of veterans coming in. We'll talk more about that later on the show. But right now, I want to talk about the bell of the ball, the big one, and that's going to be the ballpark. So, um, so I don't know if you saw the renderings, Kev, and I'll show them here in a minute,
Yeah.
but this is crazy. Like just seeing, like I know that I don't know if this is early, but to see the Royals already release renderings right before, you know, the parade, which is going to be a crazy, crazy day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be there too, filming the whole thing, and
Awesome.
I got to be there like at 4 in the morning. I'm excited, but I'm going to be so tired. Um, but it's amazing that that the Royals are really taking advantage of the timing of announcing the ballpark, of announcing all these things. But I wanted to get your initial thoughts before I kind of give my initial thoughts, and then we'll go into breaking down more of the what the rendering provided.
I'm really happy that we have a downtown location. I know there was a lot of talk about the kind of some of the Clay County when they first brought up ideas and I always felt it's got to be in downtown. If we're going to do this, make it downtown. And the East Village site was okay, but I really like this location. I like its proximity right across from T-Mobile. I love that its proximity to like the streetcar. I like that it's in the crossroads. I think that's such a budding area. Um, the stadium looks incredible in itself. A lot of those key features are still there, like the fountains. But the area is the best part. I mean, baseball is consumed differently than football. You see a lot on Twitter, like people are like, well, "What about the tailgating? What about the parking?" It's like nobody's tailgating a Tuesday night game against the Rays in September. Like, come on, like, it's like baseball is consumed, you know, in a more of a downtown culture kind of way, and we see that success in St. Louis. I went back, visited family in San Francisco. I went to AT&T or whatever they call it, Oracle Park now. It's amazing what a downtown stadium like that can do. And I'm just really excited for Kansas City because I also think it's a it's a testament to how downtown Kansas City has grown. I think downtown Kansas City is now a place, and the fact that they said we don't need to go all crazy with a ballpark district, we can kind of play into what we have. That kind of shows that, like, hey, like, we're trying to create something that's shows how much downtown Kansas City has grown in the last 20 years, especially since the last renovation of Kaufman.
Yeah. So when the renderings came out, I was, you know, just at the library here at UMKC, which this is where I'm at right now. The UMKC library is kind of like my office at this point because I cannot be doing this show at home because it's so crazy. Yeah, can't have my family running around while I'm filming this. I already did that once. Don't want to do that again. But I was eating lunch, renderings start coming out, and I think for the first time, I'm just like, I'm just so excited to be a fan because obviously we've been through a lot of tough times as Royals fans. Going through that pandemic season, going through, post World Series, 2016, 2017 and beyond, where we see young guys come up and we get this hope that, we can go somewhere, but unfortunately it didn't go that way. And then just thinking about, fans who lived through the early 2000s where, you know, we weren't in a position where we were competing immediately, but we still had great players, trading waves at Greinke was tough, Carlos Beltran, all these guys who could have been, the face of the Kansas City Royals. It was tough seeing them come and go and being like a small market team. Now, the fact that this ballpark looks beautiful. I mean, the renderings look impressive. I think the whole concept of what what John Sherman and what Populous and what that construction company has done is fantastic. There's a lot of iffy things that are going to kind of come into play, and we'll talk more about this in a bit. But to me, just seeing that there's a set in stone plan where they, you know, include downtown Kansas City, where they're legitimately in the heart of KC. Like they're near 18th and Vine. They're near the Kauffman Performance Center. They're near T-Mobile. They're near Power and Light. They're like close to everything that matters, or majority that matters here in Kansas City. And don't get me wrong, like I'm going to miss Kauffman Stadium. Like I'm gonna miss going down there and seeing Crown Vision and seeing the fountains and having, for me, the drive was only like what, 5 minutes. I could walk to Kauffman if I wanted to. But at the end of the day, just seeing how the Chiefs are projecting and how they would want that space because they're expanding. They're now a dynasty, for Pete's sake. I mean, it makes sense that the Royals would want to move out and try to make a name of their own because this is my thought, is I think the Royals are being overshadowed by the Chiefs' success. Like you think about them being like roommates. Like the Chiefs is like that famous guy who has been acting for years, who's so cool, who has a name, has a brand reputation that's just like that marvels that just takes over the entire world. And the Royals are like the freshman who just came in, who doesn't really know the way of the land, who doesn't really have a built identity or brand. And sometimes you've got to move out of the shadow of someone else to be successful. And for the Royals, moving to downtown and being like one of the first major league teams here in Kansas City to be in downtown KC is enormous. It's a big deal. And I get that you could have gone for the Eastern Village, you could have gone anywhere else, but to me, it just makes sense to stay in Kansas City, to stay in downtown. And at the end of the day, where else could they go? Like they can't just like I wouldn't want to see them leave Jackson County or see them leave to Kansas. They have to stay in KC. I mean, just for the purpose of history, for the purpose of what the Royals mean to the area. I'm just glad that they picked a great spot. And right now, let's pull up the renderings because I have them pulled up. I just got to share my screen. Go there, share. So I don't know if you guys can see. Oh, man. Yeah. So we're right there, right?
Yep.
So you can see, I'm going to try to zoom in here real quick, but oh, it won't let me. Hold on. Move that out of the way. Maybe I should just open image new tab. We're going to open the image new tab. I'm going to stop sharing real quick. This is like my first time doing this.
No, I
kid you,
get it.
I kid you not. It's here you go. So we're going to zoom in here, right?
Yep.
And we're going to scroll down. So you can see here, just looking at it, just for you guys who are watching. I'm going to scroll right there. That's good. There we go. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see number one, Royals Ballpark is like right there. Like you can see it's like a walking distance to T-Mobile. It's a walking distance to like Union Station. Because like the parade route is going to be right to the left side of T-Mobile, and you can literally walk down
Right.
there and you can take your happy self to Union Station. P&L will be right there. And then as you can see, number 2 will be where the team offices are, which is right in that vicinity, like right in front of the ballpark. You'll see that number 2 is we'll have the team offices there. Corporate office will be like right ahead. What surprised me, Kev, is the hotels.
Yeah.
Like we'll see the photos, but having a hotel right like inches away from like the ballpark has to be nuts.
Yeah, that's like kind of Toronto style, with kind of like how the Sky Dome, and they actually have the hotel inside the stadium where people like could rent it out and you can kind of see a game from your hotel room. I mean, it's not like that close, but it's still pretty close.
Yeah, I was gonna say I saw a lot of people in the comments talk or on social media talk about how this ballpark is very reminiscent of what the Toronto Blue Jays what they did for their ballpark. But sorry, I'm sending a little message here in the comments for our live stream. But it's very fascinating to see that the Royals are implementing a hotel. I mean, I'm a little bit shocked that they would add that, but it makes sense financially because that's like more seats, quote unquote.
Right.
Because I don't know if they're including that with the amount of seats, because I saw that they wanted 34,000, which is about like 4,000 less.
But, I was going to say it's smaller than Kauffman. It sounds like from their projected.
And we'll talk more about that later, but it kind of makes sense to make it smaller. I mean, it's baseball doesn't have like the immense pull in terms of attendance that it used to, unless you're St. Louis, and apparently they have their whole ordeal with their attendance stuff. But having the hotel there, I think, is going to be like extra seating. Like that might be their way of like making up for having a smaller ballpark, is having a few more fans watch the game from their hotels. And it's kind of like a pillbox situation if you think about it too. It's very akin to like watching a game from a pillbox, or watching it from right in their own area. Instead, they have their actual own place where they can lay down and then they can just get up, open their windows, and they're watching a baseball game. So makes sense. I think it's a smart idea. And then number 5, so you can see all the way in the bottom of that image that they have the like a residential and entertainment district.
Yeah.
That will be interesting too, because a lot of what the Crossroads has a lot of breweries. So I wonder if they're going to add some of the local stuff there. You would hope that would add local things, but very interesting to see if they will add local businesses down there on that residential and entertainment venue. And then number 6, they're going to, it seems like they're going to improve a lot of Grand Boulevard. So
which is where the main street is.
Yeah, so those improvements will be helpful, but again, we don't, as far as I know, I'm not completely sure how that's going to look. But the biggest thing for me is that South Loop Park, like the extension across the bridge. That is very, and when I say very, that is very ambitious for John Sherman in this team to have a whole, like you can be seeing like 1, 2, 3, like that's a large park. And I'm very interested to see how that will kind of mesh with the ballpark in general. But we'll see here later in a second. Actually, I'll just pull it up now. Why not? I'll stop sharing. We'll go here. This will give us a better idea. So open image in new tab. So, oh boy, gotta zoom out here in a second. But this is the location, the spot of it is just nuts. Here, this one's it, right? Yep, that one's it. Okay. All right. I think you guys can see that, but basically, I mean, my goodness, you see Royals Park there, or Royals Park. I really hope that's not the name.
Yeah,
I know that's just like a rendering, but if they call it Royals Park, just call it Kauffman.
I know. Even if you have to do kind of what they do at Arrowhead now, right? Call it something like GHAF at Arrowhead. Like you can't have like a Royals baseball park without some reference to Ewing Kauffman. It just wouldn't feel right.
Would not make sense. So fingers crossed they don't call it Royals Park. I know it's just, again, luckily it's just a rendering, which is like a secondary rough draft. But anywho, so looking at this from not a top-down perspective, but more of like an angled perspective, it makes sense to have this ballpark here because you're literally 10 minutes away from walking to the Arts District and the West Crossroads. You're like right there where all the entertainment stuff is. It's only minutes away. You're like 10 to 15, you're like 20 minutes away from 18th and Vine, which again, historically is huge for Kansas City because having the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, like 15, 20 minutes away walking distance to this new ballpark, it's going to mean a lot better. There's going to be a lot more relationships. There's going to be a lot more things going on, I think, since they're so close.
Right.
So that's exciting. And then you see here like municipal auditoriums right there, Bartle Hall is right there. Like this is going to be so packed if it's passed, seeing all these different things going on. But I'm excited. I mean, again, rarely do you see a rendering like this come out, and then I'll show you guys the more up close ones. So I'll stop sharing again. Boy, oh boy, this is all this sharing stuff, man.
I know, but there's a lot to see. I mean, there's a lot to see.
There is a lot to see.
Yeah.
So here we go. This is on my Twitter page, but look at that. Like that look. I don't know if you, Kev, if you can see, but it's so different from what it is in Kauffman. I mean, it's so crazy. But the big thing that a lot of people are talking about is how the ballpark's so much smaller in comparison to like Kauffman.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, do you think that it's better to go for a smaller ballpark, or do you think we need to go for something that's more pitcher friendly?
Well, I think smaller is better, one from an aesthetic end. I mean, you look at some of the biggest ballparks out there, they don't really look good because of the amount of stands, and it just looks too cavernous. I mean, you look at some of those old ballparks, look at Oakland, for example, like it's huge, but you have so much that empty seats. And the reality is, people consume baseball differently. You're not going to have sellouts for 81 games. That's just the reality. I'd rather have a ballpark that's small but easy to get around. And that's what I think Kauffman does well for its size. My brother-in-law, he's from Boston. He goes to a lot of Red Sox games. And that's the one thing he told me was it's really easy to get around Kauffman. We can get around the stadium really easily. And he says, you can't do that at Fenway. Fenway is really hard to get around. Even Oracle Park in San Francisco, very hard to get around the park from every area. And it looks like the Kauffman is kind of keeping that where it's like, hey, it's still really easy to get around and you have that intimate environment. So because 34,000 Kansas City fans during a playoff game, that's going to feel like 60,000 because of the energy and everything like that. So I'm not worried about size. I think this is perfect, especially for an 81 game season.
Yeah. First of all, having 34,000 fans there, I also, the reason I really love this spot too is because there could be 34,000 fans at the park, plus the people that will be at Power and Light, plus the people that will
Yeah.
be at the park. Downtown will be pandemonium. If like we ever make a World Series, fingers crossed. If we ever make
Yeah.
a World Series, just imagine how crazy it would get in this like presumed ballpark. Because I mean, it would be insane. I mean, just think about like that. Like you could have possibly even like 40,000,
Yeah.
40,000, even up to 50,000 people in downtown watching a Royals game.
Yeah.
Like
And
again,
it's
it depends on if we make it to the playoffs, but
right. But you see, like, what that does. Like, you see, like, for example, like Milwaukee has like the Deer District, which is like right outside of the arena. We see like Atlanta with the Battery right outside. You're right. Like, yes, it's 34,000 in the seats, but you also have to consider, okay, like this proximity, this area, that's going to be packed too. And you can't really do that with Kauffman, right? Like, you can't have people come into the parking lot, just to watch the game, but you can do that. You can have people around the area watching the game, which I think only is going to add to the stadium experience. So I'm totally with you. It's not just the 34,000. It's going to be a lot more just because of it where it is in the city.
I mean, look at that, Kev. Look at that photo. Look at
I
that
know.
render. I know it's just a rendering, but it looks so great. Like imagine how crazy it will be when there's a playoff game here in KC, and the thing that stands out when you're in downtown is a Royals ballpark that's built to accommodate to, the Kansas City life. Again, this is and we'll go more into the images later. I kind of teased it, but just looking at the other images, it is very like walking friendly, and it
Oh
is
yeah.
built around stuff like the what is it, the streetcar.
Mm-hmm.
People who say that there's not enough parking there, relax. There's plenty of parking in downtown. You and I, you were just talking about this earlier, but my goodness, the amount of people who are like, there's not going to be enough. There's not going to be enough parking. There's not going to be enough people. How we're going to fit there? It's ridiculous. I'm like, dude, it's just like we're gonna be fine. Like,
Right.
we don't need them. We don't need to make more parking lots. We're gonna have so much in downtown. And like, plus, think about when Royals games happen. Like, like if there's a night game, you'll have plenty of parking. If it's an afternoon game, go take the streetcar. Go park somewhere in the streetcar. That's why it's there. I mean, the minute that the streetcar hits the UMKC,
Yeah, I
I
was
know
gonna
where
say.
I'm parking. I know
Mhm.
where I'm parking because it just makes sense. Again, it's disappointing to see Kauffman leave. Like Kauffman Stadium is going to get demolished, like whether we like it or not, depending on the ballot, obviously. But
Mhm.
Kauffman's going to get demolished. But think about the accessibility. Like we don't have that accessibility in Raytown, and I'm a Raytown guy.
Mhm.
I know secondhand. Like you can't even get on a bus to get there. Like just to take a bus to walk to Kauffman is already crazy. And I've walked there before and it's terrible. It's like trying to walk through the Sahara Desert. So
Yeah.
this is so much better because you can park anywhere in downtown and the walk won't be as bad. You can park anywhere in the streetcar. You can go park in the river market
Yep.
for all I care. Like
Mhm.
it's going to be so accessible and it's going to give our city that of much more walkable vibe. Like I've already heard rumors that Plaza's thinking about making it a more walkable place by shutting
Mhm.
off some of the streets. And think about like the parade stuff. Think about like it makes sense to have it there. And looking at this image just really makes me realize that this would be so like this is gonna be beautiful. Like when it happens, I'm like I gotta stay in KC until this freaking this park happens. Um, Another thing too, if we can go to the next image, there you are, there you are. So this is another one. So this is another crazy thing about the new ballpark is look at that ramp. Look at that ramp. Like they have like again, this is a very ambitious project, but if they can pull it off, like having a ramp going from like where T-Mobile is all the way up there where you can find yourself your seat, I think is awesome.
Yeah.
I
And
just
I
think is awesome.
and I think one of the things I think this is indirectly going to help, when the NHL and the NBA expand, this is going to help the case, right? because it's like,
Yeah.
hey, you have a downtown baseball team with this facility that's connected to the NBA, like connected to an NBA or NHL arena. If they see like, hey, this is successful, the NBA and the NHL are going to say, hey, look what they got with their downtown baseball stadium and how it's connected. They have this entertainment district. We're going to, you know what, maybe we will move a team to Kansas City instead of Las Vegas or something like that.
Yeah.
This is also going to help with that. People say like, well, why didn't they get an NBA or NHL team? It's like, well, they weren't expanding, but also like I'm not sure the facility around is like as attractive. But now with this, now it's going to be even more attractive because they know that, hey, like Kansas City can support an actual team in a downtown area.
I was gonna say, not to kind of sidetrack off of baseball, but give me the Coyotes. Give me Arizona. Batman, I know you want to expand to KC. Just bring them. Just
Mhm.
bring them. I don't care that Shane Doe is like your most famous player, or I listen. I hockey aside,
Mhm.
it makes sense. Like
Yeah.
I think the Royals ballpark, if it happens, the NBA and the NHL will be like, oh my gosh, we
Yeah.
need to move a team here because compare. Okay, let's compare sports 10 years ago to how it is now.
Right.
10 years ago, Kev, think about where we were. It's 2014. That was like the first year the Royals were getting good.
Yep.
Chiefs were okay.
Yeah. They're
Other than that, Sporting was good too. But like there was no real hype around KC sports back in the day because we went
right.
through decades of in the 80s we didn't it was since like 83 that we went to a World Series. For the Chiefs it was like since the beginning of the NFL. Like it's that long. But just thinking about how like it's been so long for them, and now compared to 2024 where Chiefs are in dynasty, Royals are spending money and are actually doing things that we haven't seen in ever. We got a current team, repping the current. Um,
Nice.
we got a women's soccer league now. Sporting's doing great. And now there's already like these rumors that the NBA might move to KC or we
Mhm.
might see an NHL team. Like it makes sense for the NHL and NBA to come move now because they
Yes.
know that fans support teams like KU. That's a perfect example why to bring an NBA team. Look at how many KU fans are around the area. Like they're the only team that is like people know they're good, so people are going to go out there and watch, even if it's all the way like in Lawrence.
Mhm.
The Roos, they're there. They're not like amazing, but they're still there. And even then, some people don't know or don't really care because the Jayhawks are winning. They're a winning program, and even K State's a winning program. Even have MU fans here who are basketball and who are yearning for a Kansas City basketball team, for a NBA team to come to KC, and the NBA just has to hop on it. The NHL, that would be very interesting because
Mhm.
this can either become like a Vegas Golden Knights or Atlanta Thrashers. Like I don't know, Kev, if you know about the Thrashers, but
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Thrashers, yeah, Thrashers. Batman was like, hey, let's go move to Atlanta because Atlanta looks like they're going to be good. It's going to be a
Yeah.
good city. And then the Thrashers collapsed. Like ownership wasn't great. They didn't have great players. They had okay teams, but they weren't awesome. But then you
Yeah.
look at a team like Vegas, the Vegas Golden Knights. First year people said they were going to suck. They end up going on a playoff run, and then they beat the Maple Leafs, who they're their own legacy of failure.
Oh
But
gosh, I know.
no
Oh, I
disrespect,
know.
I'm kind of a Leafs fan a little bit, but only because I feel so bad for them. But
Yeah,
um,
they're just like kind of the Red Sox pre
yeah,
2004. Like they just cannot win. But
yeah, they're woof. But
yeah.
but again, I think this is a big thing for the Royals. This is I feel like sometimes I think that this is more than the Royals right now. Like
Mhm.
this is like if we can get this ballpark in downtown, that will it will make us one of the top 10 best cities for sports in the country. Because right now we're creeping up there. Like we're getting there with the
Yeah.
Chiefs, with how the Royals are doing, with Sporting, with the Current, with the Mavericks. We're creeping up there, but having this ballpark here and then bringing an NBA team or an NHL team, that boosts them up like right where like LA can be. Not exactly LA, but like, LA, Vegas, New York. Like it just makes sense. Anywho, I know I got sidetracked from baseball. This is a baseball show,
Right.
this ballpark has an impact more than baseball itself. It's tremendous. It's game changing. That's the
Right.
best way to put it. This is a game changing ballpark. But anywho, that ramp is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
No, I love it.
that's another thing I want to know. I'm very interested to see if fans will ask for Crown Vision to come back to an extent because we love ourselves in Crown Vision. We love. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you and say I don't want Crown Vision in this new ballpark, but give me something. Like, don't demolish it. Like, at least use it for something,
Right.
so then fans can reminisce from the past.
Mhm.
Because I feel like sometimes not all ballparks do that. Sometimes ballparks move on from, or owners do that with their ballparks, is they'll move on and they'll completely forget about whatever happened with the last one. Like, you know, if once you make this new one, don't destroy Crown Vision. Bring it over. See what you can do with it. Like, even if this would be nuts. Even if it would be sitting in the park and it's like a huge jumbotron where people can watch the game. Like, imagine that. Like, imagine people are sitting in that park and all the way in the end, you have a big thing that can play the games. Like, it's
Yeah.
shown to work. That would be crazy.
Yeah.
But other than that, having the fact that they implemented fountains in here, thank goodness.
Mhm.
Thank goodness that they have, like, again, like, you can see the big one like right there where I don't know if you can see it, Kev, here,
Yeah.
but
Right in the front,
you
like
can see it
for the arena.
right there. But even
Yeah.
then, if we go back, you can even see like right there, like in that kind of little, it's kind of far away, but you can see that they even have fountains inside the ballpark. Like, to me, it's huge that they would um have that kind of already written down. Oh, hold on. Maybe we can get a closer one.
Right
There
there.
you are. Look at
Yep.
that. Look at that. I mean, that's beautiful, man. Like, to have the fountains there. Like, look at how it's very similar to like what they have in the Kaufman, but it's just more grand. It's bigger. It's
Yeah.
cooler.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's part of Kansas City. I mean, like we're the city of fountains, and I'm glad they. I think that's what makes Kaufman special. I think anybody who comes to Kansas City. I mean, that even when I lived in California and Washington State, I'd watch a Royals game on TV. I mean, that was the first thing I saw. Like, oh man, look at those fountains, or like, hey, look at Ken Griffey Jr. hit one in the fountains. So I'm glad that they're keeping that. That's like, hey, that's what the ballpark is, and kind of talking about Crown Vision. I mean, I feel like that's one of the three most iconic scoreboards in Major League Baseball. I think the most iconic scoreboard, right, is Fenway, right, the
yeah,
Green Monster, and then you have Wrigley's kind of own version of that, like in center field. So I mean, I feel like, and then I think Crown. I can't imagine another scoreboard that's as iconic as the Crown. So I hope, like you're right, like they are able to incorporate it in some way in this new park.
fingers crossed, man. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Finally, before we hop on to spring training and tier lists, let's
Mhm.
talk this bridge. There's another thing. Look at that bridge. Like, that's, I don't want to say it's futuristic. Like, we're not in Back to the Future, man. We're not in Back to the Future, but that looks pretty cool.
It
I
does.
mean, the fact that fans can go from like, okay, we're gonna go all the way to Power and Light, and why don't we go catch a Royals game while we're in Power and Light?
Mhm.
You can literally walk. You can walk. That's that to me. To me, that's just like the icing on this cake of this tremendous blue and gold cake. That this ballpark, it's beautifully designed, and if they execute and if they can make it happen, you're going to bring a lot more fans in. You're going to see a very busy downtown, and I think the city wants that. The Royals want that. T-Mobile would want that. I mean, it's just I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah, it's making the city more accessible too, right? Like at the end of the day, it's like what this one of my friends always said, like, why would a downtown ballpark help the city? Is because it would force us to build infrastructure. Like the thing is, like the Royal, like Kansas City is not going to build infrastructure without a reason to do so. This gives the reason to do so, and we're starting to see that in these renderings. It's making it more accessible. It's making the city more walkable. It's making the city denser. This is helping us become closer to like a Denver rather than us just being like another St. Louis or Cincinnati or something like that.
Yeah. My only concern, that bridge over the highway, that thing better have the longest rails.
Oh
Like
yeah.
because my goodness, that would freak me out. Like walking from like T-Mobile all the way to Royals Park, as it's named right now,
Mhm.
in name only. I'm like I'd hope the Royals like build some kind of like fencing that people cannot cross, because that's the only thing that concerns me. That's the only thing that concerns me. But I leave it to the hands of the people who know their stuff, because what do I know? I'm just a journalism major.
Yeah.
I can never get into that kind of stuff.
No, I,
But anywho,
mhm.
so saw that again, 34,000 seats. They're really looking into blending in local businesses. So exciting times. Now we hop off of that and let's talk about some spring training,
Oh yeah.
because again, pitchers and catchers just reported.
Yep.
And something I want to do with you, Kev, is talk about three things that you think are crucial heading into spring training, whether it be position battles to watch, development, and whatever you want. But I'm gonna let you start off. What are you looking forward to, or what is going to be really important heading into spring training?
Yeah, I think the three things that I'm looking at for spring trading, I think the first biggest thing that we have to look at is um, who's going to emerge from the pitching staff. We know the 1 through 4 is going to be set. We know Cole Reagans, Michael Waka, Seth Lugo, Brady Singer. That's making 1 through 4 in some kind of order. We have Jordan Lyles being paid. But Daniel Lynch, he showed some things last year, and he has been working on some things this offseason. If we see Daniel Lynch back at 95 for his velocity instead of like 91, 92, where he was last year, this could give the Royals a lot of options. It could force Jordan Lyles into a long reliever and have Daniel Lynch as the number 5 starter. So I think that's a big position battle to watch. Can Daniel Lynch force his hand and kind of force Q to put him in the rotation to kind of make things interesting? So that's my first position battle. I think the second one is obviously Michael Massey. The Royals are still showing confidence in Michael Massey that he can be their second baseman of the future. And even with Adam Frazier, they're like, hey, Adam Frazier is a backup. So I'm kind of curious to see how that goes. And then last one is who's going to be the closer. We got Will Smith, we got Chris Stratton, we got Nick Anderson, all great veteran relievers. Will Smith closed some games last year. Nick Anderson was a spot closer, but we shouldn't count out James MacArthur. He was one of the most dynamic closers in baseball. He was striking out Yordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker to end games. He was mowing down Aaron Judge to end games. So people I don't think are giving him enough credit. But can he show that was in spring training, like, hey, that September wasn't just a flash in the pan, it's something to build on. I think that's going to be really interesting to watch because the Royals bullpen needs to be better. They can't be a team that ranked 28th or 29th in bullpen ERA if they want to climb the standings in 2024.
Yeah, bullpens are huge in the playoffs too. I mean, think about teams like Rangers and
Mm-hmm.
Arizona. They had really good bullpens heading into the season. They weren't great per se, but they had reliable pitchers right in the bullpen that could eat up innings and can help them get wins. And I think that's crucial too. For me, you took one already, but closer is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because we don't even know like if the Royals are going to make a trade for one. Like that is
Yeah.
still on the table. The
Mm-hmm.
Royals have so many different players that they could package a very interesting deal. I wouldn't be shocked to see this happen probably right before the season starts, like right at the end of spring training and before the regular season begins. I wouldn't be shocked if the Royals are like, okay, let's cut our losses with someone and get a guy who can come in and close if we don't have a closer. Like
Right.
it's I think it's huge to look at the in-house options, but we also need to look at, okay, if in-house isn't working, let's go find someone who's proven, who's shown that they can close. Um, my second's the outfield. I
Yeah.
feel like all the outfielders in general are going to have they're going to have such huge spring trainings, because you look at a guy like Melendez, a guy who's coming back, who's going to have a full season of working in the outfield underneath his belt. He needs to we're going to have to see some progress from him. Like
Yeah.
I need to see him. I need to see all these outfield guys. I need to see some kind of progress, except for like Hunter Renfroe, who's a vet. But like everyone else, we got to see if they can play great defense, if they can be great at bats. It's going to be big. My last one is Maikel Garcia's development post Winter League.
Yeah.
That's going to me, that is probably the biggest thing, because that will make or break the infield. Because if Maikel can, solidify third base, and then you got Bobby Witt second, whoever you want, or Bobby Witt shortstop, whoever you want second, and then Vinny at first, that might be top 10 infields in the MLB. Like if Maikel can show that he still has power, that he still has that athleticism to make those catches in third base, kind of Mustaka's like, I would say, it's going to be huge, because then that infield defense is going to be so huge for our starters. It's going to be so huge for, at the end of games. But Garcia's development is something I'm looking forward to, and one that I'm going to be interested to see how he does. Obviously, something that you and I, Kev, will do is every week we'll break down some of the spring training games and give our thoughts. But it's going to be fun. Now, let's talk about the opening 9. I want us to make a prediction. I have my little tech notebook here, but I want to see what you think, and I can pitch in too. But what do you think the opening 9 will be before kind of heading into spring training?
So my guess is I would have Maikel leading off. I think we have obviously Bobby at number 2. I think you have to have your best hitter at number 2 rather than number 3. And that was even where Bobby was really comfortable, was hitting at 2. I think you probably look at Vinny at 3. I'm going back and forth on the 4 and 5. I think it'll be MJ Salvi in some kind of way. I like the idea of maybe MJ at the 4 because he's a better base runner rather than having Vinny and Salvi, 2 slow guys back to back. By either way, it's going to be those 2. And then you're looking at the 6 hole. You're looking at probably Hunter Renfroe at 6 at right field. And then you're kind of looking at probably DH, looking at probably Nelson Velasquez as your DH, and then probably the 8-9, you're looking at a combination of either Massey or Kyle Isbell. I like Kyle Isbell in the 9 hole. He's a good base runner. His sprint speed is not elite, but he has very good instincts. So I like him as a second leadoff guy. And I like Massey in a spot where he can maybe drive in guys. Massey's a very underrated power producer. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. It's pretty chalk. I don't think there's anything that's really out of the ordinary, but I think that's my starting 9 as of February 13th.
And then we're gonna have to pick a pitcher too. But how do you feel about having a guy like Benny lower in the kind of batting order? So like, for example, I was thinking, Renfroe's not a he has good, like, he doesn't have great contact, but he could, like, having a guy like Renfroe switch with Vinny just to have some kind of balance, because looking at this, they're like all of our best hitters, I think, are going to be like right in that kind of 4 slots, because Garcia, Bobby Witt, Vinny, MJ, they're no matter what, they're gonna be the ones who I think primarily get most of your runs. But like, what are your thoughts on like switching Vinny to like the 7 hole and having a guy like Nelly or Renfroe kind of playing in that Vinny spot?
Yeah, I think that's tough because I think the one thing about batting guys up is that you're guaranteeing those guys are going to get more at bats, right? And it's like Vinny probably needs the most at bats. I think probably like maybe 5 or 6, I would entertain it. I feel 7's a little low. I get where you're coming from, and you want to strengthen the whole lineup rather than just being top heavy. I totally get that. But I also don't want Vinny in a part of the order where he's losing plate appearances. You know, I think like you said, I think Nelson can handle that 7 spot. I think really, like, you think about it, like if you have a guy like Nelson Velasquez who has 25, 30 home run potential as your 7 hitter, you're going to be in good shape as a team, right? Like you're going to be really good, and it's and I don't mind betting Renfroe higher up. He's a veteran. He's been there. He's also a guy that's gotten off to hot starts too. Like if you look at Hunter Renfroe's career splits, he's a guy who starts off April and May like pretty good. So I think that's another thing. It's like we have to consider. It's like, hey, can we ride Hunter Renfroe's traditional hot starts at the top of the lineup, and then maybe over the course of the year, kind of maybe moving him down? It'll be really interesting because I know Q likes to be fluid with his lineups. He's not the kind of guy. He's not a Mike Matheny who's like, okay, I'm putting these same guys in these same spots. That's not Q's style. So I could see it fluctuating a lot depending on matchups.
Now, starting pitcher, for me, opening day pitcher is either going to be Ragans or Lugo. I think I'll be lean more towards Lugo because he's more of a vet time guy. I wouldn't be surprised if Waka gets that starting opening day nod. But if the Royals want more fans and seats, they're probably going to go Ragans. But if they wanted to actually, if Q wants to kind of set the tone, I think having Waka as the starting opening day pitcher makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. We're playing Minnesota, first game of the year, and they're going to be facing Pablo Lopez. I mean, and I was there at opening day last year, and Pablo Lopez mowed us down. He's incredible, and he's a good pitcher, Pablo Lopez. You know, it'll be interesting to see how Q will handle that. Will he go as Ragans, who might have the more upside but is less proven? Will he go with somebody like Lugo or Waka, who's a little bit more proven, that can go toe-to-toe against Pablo Lopez? I'll be really interested to see that. I think a lot depends on the spring training, where they're at health-wise, where they're at, effectiveness. I think if Ragans dominates spring training, I think he's opening day. If you see like Ragans have like an okay or kind of shaky, I think Q will say, hey, I'm not going to put the pressure on him. I'm going to put him in the 2 or 3 spot to kind of take that pressure off.
Perfect. I guess we got our starting. We predicted our starting 9 before spring training. It's Garcia, Bobby Witt, Vinny, MJ, Salvi, Renfroe, Nelly, Massey, and Isbell, with Ragans as our opening. Well, no, sorry. Do you say Waka? Sorry.
I'd say probably Waka, just because I feel like he has a little bit more veteran presence.
Okay, Waka. Now, let's do the fun part. Okay, I'm going to share my screen real quick. Again, we're going to rank 9 Royals seasons and put them on a tier list, Kev.
Nice.
So as you can see there, we have 9 seasons. I picked these based off of wins, based off of players, based off of specific seasons. And first, we're going to go with 1977. So 1977, just to put that in perspective, that was, 77. We lost to ALCS 3-2 that year. George Brett was our best player, and Herzog was still our skipper, and we went 102-60.
Yeah, first and only 100-win season in Royals history is 1977.
It sucks that the 100 wins makes me want to put it in A tier, but like losing ALCS kind of makes me want to put it in the B section. Oh, I don't know.
That's kind of the first. I mean, you got to admit, like, it wasn't the first like playoff season. They lost to the Yankees again, which was like kind of they just couldn't get over the kind of like the 49ers with the Chiefs. Like the Yankees or the Royals could not beat the Yankees like back in the 70s. I feel like you got to go B on that just because like ultimately, like if we're looking at this, it has to be championships. Got to matter.
Yeah, B tier makes sense because the 100 wins to me might put it in A tier, but losing ALCS is always tough. Yeah, and it seems like I can only assume there's so much expectations heading into the postseason. 100-win team. You're expected to go deep in the playoffs, or go to World Series. So, yeah, B tier makes sense for for good old 1977. Next up is 1985, the year that we won the World Series for the first time. I got to put this. I'm going to say this is S tier. Only reason, well, I might put this A tier because I have a hot take, but I might put this A tier.
I like S, but I just feel like that, like it's the first one, and the fact that it came against St. Louis, man, like that,
Yeah.
it's like that, like that counts for something. Like the fact that the Royals overcame a franchise that has a lot more history, a lot more pennants and World Series than the Royals did across the state. I don't know. I think it belongs top, but that's just me.
I think that 85 team, man, had so many iconic players,
Mm-hmm.
and including you had like George Brett as like his best.
Yeah.
My problem is once you get to like 2014, 2015, I think 2015 is, well, I'll have my thoughts there, but I'll put it S tier because that's our first
Well,
like winning against.
I
I
will
mean,
say the one thing that I will put against 1985 is only 91 wins. I mean, that's
yeah.
not even top five in Royals
Okay, I'll put.
history. So
Okay, let
I feel like we got to put A now. The more that I look at it, so
yeah, let's put an A tier. Let's put an A tier
yeah,
for now. We'll have our little our discussions about. We can move stuff later, so
yeah,
don't feel like
yeah.
we have to keep this here, but we're gonna keep them at A, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Okay.
Up next is 1995. 1995, the Royals were, let's see, Royals were 70 and 74. They were second in their division and had Appier, if I'm not mistaken, as
Apier.
their top
Kevin.
player. Yeah,
Yeah, Kevin
Appier.
Apier. Yeah.
Kevin Appier, and they had Boone as their manager. And we
I
were 30 games behind. 30 games behind in first place.
I know I go I go D on this because this was kind of the beginning of the end if you think about it. Like
Yeah.
Kaufman died in 93. We just had the 94 strike. They were running on the scraps of like some of the old guys. Apier was a stud, but yeah, I to me it's like 95 was kind of like, okay, this is when the shoe started to drop. So I'm going D on that.
Yeah, it sucks that 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 was such a the late 90s were such a tough year for the Royals.
Mm-hmm.
With the strike included, but they did what they could, at least. I mean, some other teams like like the Expos, they were down bad. So
Right.
at least we're not Montreal fans, or at least
Yep.
we're not Montreal.
Yeah.
Okay, up next is 2001. So 2001, that was 65 wins, 97 losses. Fifth, we were the worst, but we had Beltran and we had was it Muser
Tony
as our,
Muser. Oh boy.
yeah.
Yeah. Tony
And that was
Muser.
the year before 2002 when he got fired, it seems like, and then Rock and then Pena come into that to kind of fill in for him. But I gotta put this D tier too. I mean, Beltran might take it to C tier, honestly, since he was like kind of that first guy in a while who like showed George Brett-esque like an impact like that where he can be the star player. But Beltran might make me put this at C.
I mean, I go D just because of the record, but you also have to think like you have Beltran, incredible 24 home runs, 101 RBI, 31 stolen bases as a 24-year-old. Mike Sweeney had another really good year, 29 home runs, 99 RBIs,
Yeah.
10 stolen bases. You had like this really top heavy lineup, which was really good. Pitching kind of sucked, but that was like Jeff Supan's like, prime year. So like, I guess like you got to credit that, but I mean, that was probably like vintage Beltran and even Sweeney, really. I mean, Beltran and Sweeney were probably alone worth watching that club.
Oh my gosh, 2001. What a year. That was a year before I was born. So it's just crazy to think about how like Beltran and Sweeney were like they were doing really good, but sucks that they didn't have enough wins. But
Yeah.
now we move on. Now we move on to 2014. Um, I just realized I added 2014 twice,
Oh,
but that is whatever. But 2014, we all know what happened there. Royals have a crazy return to form where they go to the World Series for the first time in years. They go 89 and 73. This was the fourth year under Ned Yost's kind of big resurgence here in KC. Alex Gordon was the best player, it seems like, according to WAR. Um, but they were second place in the Central, had that wild playoff. The road to the World Series was crazy. That wild card game was nuts, and we lose 4-3 to the Giants. I still remember watching that game and seeing Pablo Sandoval make the final catch, and I felt so deflated because I thought that was going to be the only year that we'd win the series.
yeah. Yeah, I mean that year was incredible. I mean, first playoff appearance in 30 years since 1985.
Yeah,
Um, you know, I'm putting this in A tier. I mean, they didn't win it all, so that's why I can't put in the S. But you look at 1985 and 2014. 1985, they played 14 playoff games. In 2014, they played 15. But remember that this Royals team clean swept everybody through the American League playoffs, which I think is
yeah.
very like not appreciated enough. They had those, I think it was 9 straight playoff games that they won, or 8 straight playoff games that they won going into the World Series. And so the record isn't as impressive as 1985, and they obviously didn't win it all, but that playoff run was pretty legendary for the Royals in 2014.
All right, let's get to it. 2015 is S tier, right? Like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can't beat that. You can't beat that run.
yeah,
That was right when Escobar was at his best. We had that inside the park home run, dude. Oh, like having the inside the park home run be like one of our very first plays was so like so awesome. I remember that year I was in school and I wrote a letter to myself and I was like, I need the Royals to win the World Series in 2015. But before we kind of get into our thoughts, just a quick rundown on how they did statistically. They were 95 and 67, first in the AL Central. Lorenzo Cain was their best player. Ned Yost, has a wild comeback, kind of returns after a World Series loss and kind of brings KC the crown. But again, so many iconic players: Lorenzo Cain, Hosmer, Moustakas, Escobar. Remember guys like Paulo Orlando, Alex Rios. Oh my god!
yeah,
Remember Cuthbert having that big play for us down the road. Johnny
yeah.
Cueto coming to KC. Ben Zobrist playing like right in the middle. This team is this team's S tier. Like this is my hot take. I'm pretty sure that 2015 team can beat 1985.
Oh,
Like
no
if they
doubt.
had to go head to head,
Yeah,
if they had to go head to head, like who's gonna beat that three-headed monster of Kelvin Herrera, Wade Davis, and I forget the last one. It's not Brandon Finnegan. It's not Brandon Finnegan.
Oh,
Um,
Wade Davis and Greg Holland.
Greg Holland. Like who
Yeah,
stops that? Like that was probably one of the best bullpens in the MLB. Like that was a team that no one could stop. The Royals just beat the living bejesus out of the Mets. Like 4-1. Like I
yeah,
know it's not a sweep, but that's still crazy that they dominated at home. Like they were able to get wins at home. They're able to win away. This team's S tier no matter what.
yeah. I mean, 95 wins, third most in franchise history. The fact that they were close to winning the World Series, they came back, had a better regular season, and then still won the World Series. That's very rare. It's very rare to a team to like come close to winning it as a runner-up and then win it the next year. We've seen a lot of teams kind of do the inverse where they get close to the World Series and they take a step back the following year. I mean, look at like the Phillies, for example. They were runner up, and then they ended up losing to the Diamondbacks. In the NLCS. We've seen the Dodgers win a World Series in 2020, and they haven't been to a World Series since. It's a very hard thing to do, and the Royals did it. And I think so. I think you got to put S tier because they were not just the best playoff team; they were the best regular season team as well. I mean, 95 wins speaks for itself. So like, I think you're right. Like I think they're better than the 85 team if you put them on a matchup. Does the 85 team have the better overall player in George Brett? Absolutely. But I think the overall better team was probably 2015.
All right, we got two more. 2017. 2017 was the last great year that we had. We went 80 and 82. We were third in the Central. We had our best player as Lorenzo Cain again, and Ned Yost. That was one of his last good years with KC. This one, I'm gonna be honest with you. I would put this at C tier simply because that was probably our last great year. That's when we still carried that crazy momentum from the World Series. We still had some of our good players. We also got the kind of emergence of Whit Merrifield, who I have to say I have his jersey on right now, but in his own, he kind of started to grow within the organization. But I put the C tier only because I think 1977 clearly better because just out of wins. But for nostalgia purposes, I don't think it's as bad as 95 or 2001.
Oh, I think for sure. I think it's they were like the Royals were kind of in the playoff hunt, by the trade deadline. Didn't made some weird deals, kind of really tanked in September. But I'd say, like you're playing like a majority of the year, it was competitive baseball. They were in the race. So I mean, I think you got to give them credit for that. Right? So that's why I think a C tier, I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, golly. All right, one more, and then we'll be out of here. 2020, 2020, the pandemic year, the year that everything shut down and we had that short season. But we went 26 and 34. We were fourth. We were fourth in the AL Central. First year, Mike Matheny, and Salvi was our best player. But this is D tier. This is D tier. Like this is a definition of like when we were down bad. This is when we were down bad as Royals fans, because I still remember. I don't know if this was a year that Hunter Dozier I don't know if this is a year that he was good or not, but
The year before he had the big year in 2019. I will say that the one thing that was nice about 2020 is it was kind of a Salvi year, and it kind of led into his monster 2021. Yeah, Salvi missed all of 2019 due to Tommy John surgery. And then Salvi hit 11 home runs in 37 games, posted an insane 986 OPS, just was ridiculous. Basically carried that offense on his own, and then he parlayed that to 48 home runs the next year. I think kind of what we've seen from Salvi, his kind of rejuvenation as a DH was started in 2020. So I think some credit has to be given to that year. I don't think Salvi has the year or has like the last few years that he did if it wasn't for 2020. But you're right. Like overall, we were kind of hyped in because it was like the short season. We could make the playoffs. Like every game counts. And it was just kind of another Royal season, like the pitching staff wasn't good. The bullpen wasn't great, though Scott Barlow took over as the closer. So yeah, I put in D. I don't think you can really argue.
Oh, buddy, the names. I'm just looking at baseball reference. The names: Salvi, Hunter Dozier, Nicky Lopez. The Mondesi hype was so crazy in like 2015 to like now. Like, do you remember when like Mondesi, everyone thought he was going to be like the next best thing?
Yeah, he was supposed to be Bobby Witt, right?
And
yeah,
all he needed to do was he was Bobby Witt. Mike Hill Franco as third base. We still had Alex Gordon kind of chugging along at left field. Soler, that was that the year that we traded for Jorge Soler, or was that like 20? I want to say we got
20,
him like 2018 or 2019.
2017. 2019 is when he hit
2017.
the 2019 is when he set the
Yeah,
original home run record.
And then O'Hearn, McBroom, Olivares, Franchi Cordero, Brent Phillips. Oh my god, that is just oh my goodness.
And don't forget
4 years.
Local Gardner kid, Bubba Starling, Nebraska Cornhuskers quarterback commit. So,
oh my god. And then just look at the pitchers, man. We had Rosenthal in there. Like, oh boy. This is gonna be Matt Hart. Remember we had Matt Harvey? We had a dark night out there.
Oh boy.
For like 30 seconds.
Not very long. I do remember that. It was kind of like we got him, and then like he had like 3 or 4 starts, and I think he got like waived after that.
Yeah, and then he went to the Angels, and then the Angels were trying to make something out of him, and then that's a weird player. I still remember when he was like so good with the Mets, and then just went down from there. Anywho, now we see our tier list. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. Did we shaft the 85 team? Do you think they should have been S tier? Do you think 2014 should have been moved up or down? Just let us know in the comments down below. Anywho, with that being said, this is it. We what a show. I mean, going from ballpark to spring training to ranking Royals teams. Who would have thought? Who would have thought, right?
Right. Hey, it's Royals baseball, man. Like anything can happen, right?
I know. So thank you guys for joining us. We really appreciate y'all coming to tune in and watch us talk a lot about the ballpark and also talk about spring training and watch us rank these teams. I'm going to post the tier list on Twitter here shortly after the show's done. And we'll let all the Royals fans out there get at us. But we thank you guys for coming in, tuning in, joining us. We'll be back next week to talk more about Royals, and we're going to see what happens. Who knows? Maybe we'll get some wild trade or some wild celebrity is going to end up dating a Royals player. But hey, listen, Taylor Swift's got Taylor Swift. We got to bring someone, right?
Right.
We got to bring someone.
Well, I guess Bobby's engaged, so
Bobby's engaged.
That list is getting short. Okay, so
Michael, go get someone. Go get someone.
We gotta see if Michael.
Go Hollywood, man.
Yeah.
But we thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate it. I've been Cristian Martinez. That's been Kev. We will see you guys next time. And remember to always chase the pennant. Also, go Chiefs.